Hey guys, this is a really, really important topic. Glad you tuned in. Hey, share this with somebody. There's people that really, really need to hear this. By the way, go on and give us a 5-star rating and write a review. That will help this podcast move up the ladder where more and more people will hear it. We appreciate you helping us out. We're going to talk about the state of your flock, knowing the state of your flock. Question you need to ask yourself is, do I know the state of my flock? Be blessed as you listen. Proverbs 27:23 says to know the state of your flock. I think some translations say be diligent at knowing the state of your flock. And so, the state of your flock is, or your flock is really what you're in charge of.
Right.
It's what you're responsible for. And this is kind of a huge topic. And so this in particular for parents, but really this could go for people that married couples, even that don't have kids at home anymore.
Correct. Or
never had kids. Like I always want to we're always trying to hit that broad base with things. And so this really could apply to all of that. You have things you're responsible for. In particular, with parents that have kids, you have a responsibility with those kids. And here's the thing, is that you're responsible for their mental health, their physical health, their spiritual health, when they're real young in particular. But even as they get older, you have a place to speak into it, to know what's going on, and really to know what's going on regardless of whether you have a relationship with them to speak into it. If they're older, much older kids, adult kids, you still need to know so you can pray for them.
That's right.
So you can't do something about something you have no knowledge of.
Correct.
So everything we do is based on knowledge that we have. You have to know what's going on with your kids. Know what's going on with their relationships. Know who they're spending time with. Know what they're looking at online. Know the shows that they're watching. Know how their relationship is with the Lord. Know how much money they have. Know what they're doing with their money. But then this goes beyond just children. Know what's going on with your money. Know what's going on in your home. Know what your environment looks like. Pay attention to the things that are happening.
That's right.
Know the state of your emotional flock, if you will. Know the state of your mental health. Know the state of your financial future. Know the state of the relationships that you have with people. So I won't carry on because we could go on and on and on. But the point is that know the state of your flock means everything you're responsible for. You have to know what's going on with it before you can lead it in the direction it needs to go. If it's off course, you need to get it back on course. If it's on course, you need to know why, and you need to work to keep it there.
Right, and it could be something that's so in the distance that you need to, like a shepherd calling a sheep back, hey, come back, and then they hear the shepherd voice, they come back. So if it's out in the distance, just bringing it close. So like you said, having knowledge, but you can have knowledge but not pay attention to something. And there needs to be that distinction. You could know something is not right but not want to pay attention to it.
It's kind of like having discernment.
Right. Yeah. But so then that is where be diligent to know the state of your flock. So being diligent means that you're paying attention to know what is going on. So it's to me both ends.
Yeah, because it's like someone could be like, where are your kids? Oh, they're at home watching TV. Okay, well, what are they watching? Well, I don't know. Well, why don't you know what your kids are watching? I'm just throwing that as an example.
Sure, yeah, and that
would be the difference between just knowing, like, just a general knowledge versus really diligently paying attention.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's really important that we pay attention to things. There's a lot of when you're looking at your kids in particular, there's a lot that can get their time and attention and their affection, their mind. I mean, the enemy is working overtime to really get our kids' attention and their minds, to corrupt and warp their minds with all kinds of things.
That's right.
And if we don't guard them, who's going to guard them? So a shepherd is supposed to take care of their sheep. And so if you know the state of your flock, that puts you in the right position. I think it's Joseph Z that says to be forewarned is to be forearmed. I think is how he says it. But basically, it's like if you have knowledge of something, if you know something, if you've had a warning of something, then you can be forearmed to deal with that thing. But if you stay in the dark, and a lot of people, they're almost like ignorance is bliss, and it's like, no, actually, what you don't know is killing you.
That's right.
You potentially could be in a really bad shape because you don't know what's going on. And we've experienced this on a lot of levels, positively and negatively. And I remember one time you came to me and I have been really years without really paying attention to our finances. You knew what was going on, but yet you also weren't really paying attention.
That's right.
And we found ourselves,
unfortunately,
we found
Very
ourselves in a really tough spot.
we were in a pickle.
It wasn't because, now I don't know which pickle you're thinking of. We've been in a couple of them, but the last one I'm thinking of, it wasn't because we didn't have enough money or because we weren't making enough money. It was because we weren't paying attention to where that money was going or what was happening with that money.
That's right.
So, you have to know what's going on. And sometimes people almost want to put blinders on and be like, oh, everything's okay. And in their heart, they know it's probably not okay, but they're too afraid to face it.
Right. And that's the biggest thing, fear. Fear will keep you from facing the things, from being diligent, from making the choice to look at the situation. Because if you're scared of something, you don't want to address it.
Right.
And you think that it will just take care of itself, that it will just work out. And sometimes things do just work out, but that's chance. And if you leave things to chance, it could work or it couldn't work.
Right.
You don't know. But when you are intentional to face the fear, face the whatever the underlying issue, and say, okay, and communicate about it. Find somebody, especially if this is a marriage, relationship. Talk to your spouse and say, look, I'm having some fear here, and I need you to help me pay attention. I can't pay attention. When you're scared of something, when you're in fear, the only thing you can pay attention to is that fear. And that fear cripples you, it blinds you, and it paralyzes you. Yeah. That's what it does. And so when you are paralyzed, you can see what's happening, but you lose the ability to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we don't become paralyzed, and that we not only see, but then we bring the solution. We can face things. It's okay to acknowledge what's happening and then to be able to bring the right solution to it. And you have a responsibility. It is due diligence. It is even within your power to take control, because anytime you don't take control of something, you remain under. But when you take control of something, you become powerful, and therefore then you can start making the steps to making the thing right again. Developing the systems, having the communication, just doing the things that are necessary. I'm just thinking about, like, especially children and devices in this world right now. The thing that would be easier to do is to just not allow your kids to have any ability to get on the internet or look at things or watch shows, because you're so scared that if they do that, then they're going to see something that they shouldn't, and then they'll continue down that road, when you should just have communication. You should set boundaries, and then you should also talk to them about why we're being cautious, why we're being protective, that there is an enemy out there and he wants to devour you, and it is very easy, and you have much access to things that you shouldn't look at, and they are to rob you of relationships and rob you of especially your relationship with the Lord, and they're to keep you in shame and guilt and condemnation. And we're just being very cautious, and that's why we have boundaries. And then when you do watch something or see something that maybe you shouldn't have seen or watched, that you come tell me about it, so that we can work to make the right adjustments and parameters. And a lot of it is just communicating and why.
And I as just this whole idea of, like, knowing the state of your flock, to me, it's stewardship. And so Jesus gave a parable, and he said that he who is faithful in a little will be made ruler over much. And so, and then also another point, he talks about how that if you're faithful in what is another man's, then you will be given the true riches. And I think that every person listening to this could say that they want more.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's right to say that God wants us to have more.
Right.
But how we're taking care of what we're taking care of now in our homes is really where the rubber meets the road. That's where the training ground is, and that's where the testing ground is.
That's right.
So if you want more in your business, how are you taking care of your finances at home? If you're wanting more, say in ministry, how are you taking care of your own family? Because if you can't rule your own family, how are you going to rule the household of God, right? And so you have a responsibility to steward relationships. And then also when it comes to, things like finances and whatever, sometimes we want more, but we don't think of it in terms of stewarding.
Right.
So for me, and this would be too clinical to just say it like this, but there is a truth that I steward the relationship that I have with you. I feel responsible as your husband to steward that. Now, a better way to say it would probably be to nurture it, but that's really kind of the same kind of thing, to where I invest into you and I know what's going on with you and how are you feeling and how are you doing. And I noticed when I missed it, I realized that, just this morning and we got busy doing ministry stuff, but I realized just this morning that you went and saw your grandma last night and I didn't even ask you how your grandma's doing. So I missed it, but at the same time, I realized that I missed it, so I needed to talk to you about how is your grandma doing. By the way, how was your grandma doing? Because you went and saw her yesterday. So doing those kind of things is stewarding what God has given you well. And if you want to have more, you want to have increase, you want things to be better, you have to take care of what you have.
That's right.
And how you take care of things is paying attention to the nitty gritty. It's paying attention to details, knowing where your money is going, knowing what your kids are doing, knowing how your kids are doing emotionally and relationally, knowing how your spouse is doing. That requires work. And that's the thing, is that what's most important to you is what has been given to you. And that's where the training ground is to whether you're going to get more or not. So even though you're working your job and you come home, you still have a responsibility to know what's going on with your family, to input, to participate, to work, to help, to serve, to give, and to inquire, to ask, to participate. It requires a lot. Life, having a successful life, having a successful state of your flock is a full-time life. Not just a full-time job. It is your life. It's what your life is about. And so it's really important, not just for the sake of being able to be entrusted with more, but really making sure that you take care of what you have.
Yeah.
We have finances. We should take care of it. We have children. We have a spouse. We should take care of all of those things.
That's right.
We have a responsibility. And, we just a very practical example. I know we're talking about a lot of different things, but it's all included in the state of your flock, what you're responsible for. Just at the end of this year, we sat down and we started looking at finances, and we're like, whoa, okay, we see why our savings took a little bit of a hit. And it's because, and I thank God we had the savings. There were some different things that came up, and we had to do some things and whatever. And it's fine. We had the money, praise God. But then we got to looking at our finances. We realized that we had thousands of dollars unnecessarily going out the door every year because we weren't paying attention to the little Apple subscriptions. We're like, what the heck? Why do we even still have this?
Okay, little sidebar.
You have to go through and pay attention to that.
Find all your subscriptions because they are sneaky.
They are sneaky. You're like, oh, I'll take this free trial for 7 days. You forget about it, and it's been charging you for 2 months, whatever. Right? So there's all those things. Paying attention to details is a big. It is really, that is how you take care and know the state of your flock. You have to look at the details. If you're a shepherd and you have sheep, you should know how every one of your sheep are doing and why they're doing, how they're doing, whether it's good or bad, and what you need to do to resolve it.
And you notice when they're starting to go outside of the flock a little bit too, when you're paying attention, and you can be like, no, we're going to come back in because you're paying attention.
We should never be sideswiped by things. If we're sideswiped, it's because we were not being a good steward. We did not know the state of our flock. Now, I'm not saying life can't throw you curveballs, but if all of a sudden your kid's like, I hate you, and I want to leave, and they're 15 years old, you haven't been paying attention for the last 15 years, if that threw you for a loop. Because I've heard parents are like, where did this come from? I just never saw this. I'm like, yeah, your kid's been having that boil up in his heart for 15 years. He just finally got enough gumption to say it to you.
Right.
You were not paying attention. And now you've waited to a point to where it's going to be really hard to fix it. Know what's going on.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. Share with your friends and on your socials. For more information about Ward Ministries, check out wardmen.org. If this podcast is encouraging you on your marriage and family, we want to hear about it. Email us at info@wardmen.org, and make sure you keep your eye out weekly for the latest podcast on marriage and family.